Temujin, also known as Genghis Khan, seems like two different people depending where you are in the world. In some parts of the world, he is seen as the founding father of a great nation. His name is honored. In fact, up until 2020, the international airport in Mongolia was known as the Genghis Khan International Airport. To others, he was a ruthless warlord who during his conquest murdered over 40 million people. No matter what a person's opinion of Genghis Khan is, the one thing that cannot be disputed is that he was a gifted leader. So let's sharpen our swords and explore how Genghis Khan was able to conquer most of the known world. Hello scholars, I'm Captain Daniel Johnston, an officer in the United States Air Force. I founded Wiggin Academy to share important leadership principles with as many people as possible by connecting these principles to stories. My message is that being a leader is not only for those who have a job where they manage people. All of us are leaders in some capacity, whether that's at work, home, church, sports clubs, or really any situation where you are responsible for others. The principles that I've chosen to share with you are those which I've seen make an impact during my career. Today's principle is going to be the importance of empowering your people. Autonomy, or the ability for a person to decide and act on their own behalf, is something that all people crave. As a leader, the amount of autonomy given to your people is your decision, not theirs. This is a responsibility that you should take seriously and consider thoroughly before taking any action, for the good of your people and the organization. Giving your people autonomy requires balance. Too much, and there will be chaos. Too little, and your people will feel suffocated by micromanagement. In my experience, I found that the more autonomy leaders are able to give their people without compromising the mission, the better. For this to be real and not some fake gesture, leaders have to be prepared to empower their people to solve the problems they may encounter in completing their duties. This means leaders need to give their people the required authority to handle issues that they may come in contact with. If leaders do not empower those to whom they give autonomy, they will quickly realize that they do not have any real control over their situation, causing them to feel trapped and insignificant instead of valued members of the team. When leaders empower their people, they will feel a sense of ownership in the success of the organization. This kind of effective delegation is what creates the space for people to flourish and become creative problem solvers instead of just mindless sheep following orders. Temujin worked his way from slavery to be one of the most well-known and feared leaders in the world. Through military and political genius, he was able to bring all the Mongolian tribes under one banner for the first time in the country's history, after which he was given the name Genghis Khan, which translates as the universal ruler. Over the next 20 years, he assembled and wielded one of the most successful campaigns in recorded history. By the time he died, Genghis Khan had conquered over 9 million square miles, over twice the size of modern-day China, and ruled 25% of the world's population under his empire. The Mongolian Khan's reign stretched from northeastern Russia to eastern Europe and reached as far as the Middle East and even Japan. In the lands that he conquered, Genghis Khan established a common law known as Yasa, which prohibited adultery, theft, blood feuds, and even religious persecution. Unbeknownst to many, he also adopted those he defeated as Mongol citizens and allowed them to rise to positions of prominence instead of just enslaving them. This is what allowed Genghis Khan to hold so many of his conquered lands for such a long period of time. Unlike many warlords that came before or after him, it turns out the recognition of basic humanity and worth of people can be a motivating force when it comes to manufacturing consent among the conquered. This is not because the great Genghis Khan was some kind of humanitarian, but because he was a pragmatist. A famous example of that is that of Zheb. The story of Zheb took place during a battle in 1201 against the rival Tejut tribe, when Genghis was nearly killed after his horse was shot out from under him with an arrow. When he later addressed the Tejut prisoners and demanded to know who was responsible, only one soldier bravely stood up and admitted to being the shooter. Stirred by the archer's boldness, Genghis made him an officer in his army and later nicknamed him Zheb, or Arrow, in honor of their first meeting on the battlefield. Zheb would go on to reward Genghis's trust in him by becoming one of the Mongols' greatest field commanders during their conquest in Asia and Europe. The importance of this cannot be overstated due to the power and influence that Genghis Khan allowed his generals to have. To manage an army and an empire of such a magnitude, Genghis Khan empowered those in his organization and trusted them with important decisions. He supplied his top generals power to spearhead independent campaigns, trusting their judgment and prowess in expanding his empire. To manage his forces at the lower levels, they were divided into groups of 10, 100, and 1,000. Each of these groups within Khan's army selected their own leaders to represent and guide them into battle. The only military leaders actually chosen by Genghis Khan were his field generals, who led groups of 10,000 men. As a great military and civic leader, Genghis Khan understood the significance of investing in the abilities of his people and enabling them to lead their own cohorts. He knew everyone possessed valuable perspectives on what would help his empire succeed. For many leaders, giving this type of decision to their people would be extremely difficult. It would test their need to have complete control of the structure and decision-making within their organization. By empowering individuals to make decisions pertaining to military operations, Genghis Khan secured their loyalty. Once people feel they have a say within an organization, they become part of its failures, and more importantly, they become part of its successes. I bet when you woke up this morning, you didn't think you'd be asking yourself, WWGKD, what would Genghis Khan do? But if we can't learn anything about leadership from a person who started as a slave and founded an empire that would last over 100 years, I'm not really sure who we can learn from. The first thing that you need to know to follow Genghis Khan's example is to determine how much of your autonomy do you want to afford to your people. To begin this process, there's a couple of factors you need to examine. These are to understand, first, what tasks require your involvement, and second, how much confidence do you have in your people? When you begin the process of looking at your day and deciding what can be delegated, you might be surprised at how much of your day is spent doing things that you do not have to do. This does not necessarily mean that you never do anything that can be given to others. These decisions need to be made deliberately and take multiple stakeholders into account. What it does mean is that you need to prioritize the things that only you can do as a leader, and have the courage to empower your team to take care of some of the other stuff. The second factor incorporates a little bit of circular logic. Because if you have confidence in your people, you need to trust them and give them responsibility. If you don't have confidence in your people, it's probably because they haven't yet been given the chance to prove themselves. If they have been given that chance and just failed, then it's really up to you to decide if you want to keep them on your team or not. Any way you slice it, the answer points to empowering your people. These factors are essential to consider, because once you move tasks off your plate, you need to give your people the chance to complete their new responsibilities. If you don't empower your people, you will end up insulting them and making operations less efficient than they would have been in the first place. Like Genghis Khan, give the most power possible to the lowest level you can. Not only will this develop your people, but it will also give you more bandwidth to handle weightier matters. All right, scholars, that's our lesson for today. Now the rest is up to you. I need to ask you a few questions, and I want you to really think about them before answering. Do you know what tasks you are currently delegating to your people? What is the balance of work you perform and they perform? Is that current ratio intentional? And if so, why? Is there something holding you back from giving more authority to your people? And if so, what? And finally, are the tasks you delegate to your people selected in a way that might help them grow? I know these lessons are easy to talk about, but difficult to put into practice. But I promise you, as you put in the effort to improve your leadership, you will see the benefits in both in your organization and in your personal life. All right, till next time, keep on learning. Thank you so much for watching. Much of what I go over in my lessons can be found in my book, Mission First, People Always. You can find it for purchase on Amazon through the link in the description of the video, along with the links to the Wiggin Leadership Academy social media pages where we post regularly. If you enjoyed today's video and want to watch more leadership lessons, then please help us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.